animals. Now, reproduction, as you know, is a very important and a very fundamental characteristics of all living organisms. When we were studying the characteristics of living organisms, apart from that they take nutrition, they all move, they all excrete, they all respire, we also learnt they all reproduce. So it is one of the fundamental characteristics of living organisms, and it is very important for the survival of the species. We all know that living beings are born and they have a fixed span of life. They will die after this span of life is completed. So if there is nothing like reproduction, that means once the organism dies, there is the continuity of species is not there. Let's say dogs have a lifespan of about 12 to 13 years, and today something happens and they are not able to reproduce. So after 12 to 13 years, all the dogs will die and there will be no dogs on earth. So reproduction ensures that a species of organism continues to survive. It ensures that there is continuity of life in that community of living beings. So that is why it is a very important life function, or it is a very important function of all living things. It is basically a fundamental characteristics or a very basic characteristics of living things. Now, modes of reproduction. There are two types of reproduction, or two ways that reproduction happens. The first one is the asexual reproduction. The second one is the sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, it doesn't require two different parents. It can be done by only one single parent. Here, gametes are not involved. So, the offsprings or the kids which are formed are exact replica of their parents. This is done in Hydra, in amoeba, because once it's a unicellular organism, it divides completely, and amoeba I'm talking of, and it produces an exact copy of itself. Now we come to sexual reproduction. This reproduction involves two different sexes, the male and the female. Okay, and the fusion of male and female gamete leads to the formation of the offspring, and that is why, because two different kind of gametes are involved, that is why we call this a sexual reproduction. Okay, now we will learn more about this in sexual reproduction in animals. So as I said, it involves two different sets of parents, which is male and female. In certain animals, like in human beings, like in birds, you have seen a peahen and a peacock, or a normal hen and a cock. You know that the animals, even the dog and the female dog, that's called a bitch, they look different from each other. So a female will be female and male will be male. So such organisms are called unisexual organisms because they produce one kind of gamete. Okay, one individual can produce one kind of gamete. Now we have bisexual organisms also, which are capable of producing both kinds of gamete. Example for them is earthworm, example for them is leech. But we will be, in this chapter, we are basically dealing with the unisexual reproduction in animals. So you will find a male will be different from the female. So that means male will have a different set of organs, and male will be producing a male gamete which is called sperm. Okay, so the male sexual gamete is called a sperm. The female gamete is called an ovum or an egg. Okay. Now, fertilization or the fusion of male and female gamete is called fertilization. Okay, so when male and female gamete meet, it is called fertilization, and it is only after fertilization that they form a single egg, which is called a zygote, or which is the fertilized egg. So if you remember, we studied cell theory. In this cell theory, we studied that the life of all organisms begin from a single cell. So this is where it is being fulfilled. But then you would say that if zygote is a single cell, how is it a single cell? Because it is formed by male and female gametes. So that means two cells are coming together. But what happens is a male cell will have only half the number of chromosomes. Like I'll give you an example of human beings. Human beings have 46 pairs of chromosomes. So the male gamete carries 23 chromosomes. Similarly, female gamete carries this 23 chromosomes. So when they meet together, it is then a cell which is formed, or zygote which is formed, which contains all the 46 chromosomes which are required for a human being. So that is why we say zygote is a single cell, and this is the cell from which all organisms, the zygote is a single cell from which all organisms begin their life. Okay, so now we will be learning about the two kinds of fertilization, which is external and internal fertilization. Fertilization, that is the fusion of male and female gamete. We symbolize them with this kind of symbols. So if fertilization happens in two ways: the external fertilization and internal fertilization. External, as the name suggests, it must be happening outside the female body. So fertilization, if it happens outside the female body, as in the case of amphibians or frogs, you would have seen that during the rainy season, the mother releases eggs in a jelly kind of a protective covering. These eggs are called spawn, and she releases them in water or pond or very slow moving streams, etc. She will release these eggs. At the same time, male also releases its sperms in the water only, and these sperms move towards these spawn or the eggs, and they fertilize outside the body of the female. So this kind of fertilization, where the fusion or the gametes have met outside the body, is called external fertilization, and it happens in frogs, it happens in fish also. So this is external fertilization. The next kind is internal fertilization. The name only tells it, it happens inside the female body, or the fusion of gametes happens inside the female body. The male discharges its gamete inside the female body, and this is where the fusion of both the gametes happen. It happens in case of human beings, it happens in case of cattle, that is cow, and it happens in case of dogs, horse, cat, etc. So they show internal fertilization. Dogs, human beings, horse, cattle, etc. we show internal fertilization. The male gamete fertilizes the female egg inside the female body only. Okay. Now, based on how the development of the zygote takes place, we divide the animals into viviparous and oviparous animals. Okay, this is how the zygote is developing inside, or how the zygote develops. Now, if the development of the zygote takes place inside, after the fertilization the zygote has formed. So if the development of the this zygote takes place inside the mother's body only, and the mother gives birth to the young one, then these kinds of animals are called viviparous animals. Human beings are babies develop inside the mother's womb only. Dogs, the babies develop inside the mother's womb. Cats, the babies develop inside the mother wombs. So these are called viviparous animals. Then if the zygote develops outside the mother's body, okay, in a protective covering or a protective shell, like in form of egg. Even if the fertilization has taken place internally, the hen releases an egg and then she sits on that egg, and after some time that egg breaks and the chick comes out. So this kind of these kinds of animals where the zygote develops outside the mother's body in a protective covering called egg is called oviparous animals. So in this case, the organism after the formation of zygote lays an egg, and then from that egg the young one comes out. So these kind of organisms are called oviparous organisms, and example for them is hen, example for them is all other birds, example for them is lizards, reptiles. So all these are oviparous animals. So the animals which give birth to young one, we can generally say they are viviparous. The organisms which lay egg, they are called oviparous organisms. So now we will be learning about the male reproductive system in the human beings. So now we will be starting with the reproductive system in males in human beings. Okay. Human males actually by the age of 14 to 15 years start developing their sexual characteristics. These are called secondary sexual characteristics, and they basically start by the development of a hormone which is the male hormone, and it is male sex hormone, and it is produced in their male sexual organs, and this hormone is called the testosterone. Now let us understand what is the composition of a male's sexual organs. Okay, so it consists of a pair of testes. That means there are two testes which are the site of the production of sperm, the male gamete, as well as testes are here, which are the site of male gamete production. This is the place where the male gametes are produced, and also the testosterone is produced. Then they have two sperm ducts. So these are the sperm ducts which take the sperms once they are produced to urinary bladder. From there they are transferred further. Then urethra, which is here. This urethra is what takes the sperm from the urinary bladder to it is used to throw out the sperms. Okay, so this is where the sperms travel through. Then penis, which is an organ of penetration. Okay, so now this is the main four parts of the male reproductive system. And what is a male gamete? I'll show you here in the diagram also. It is a sperm. Male gamete, as I told you, is a sperm. It is basically made up of three parts. The head portion, which is the one which contains all the genetic information, and it is called the head because it contains the nucleus over here. Then we have the middle portion or the neck portion, which contains a coiled mitochondria which gives it energy to move, and then it has a tail which helps it to move. Okay, so sperms are very highly motile. Motile means they are very fast and they move very rigorously. So which is done by the help of this tail. Now we individually understand what are these organs. Testes. The testes are two pairs. They are two in pairs, and they are located outside the abdominal cavity. They are located outside the abdominal cavity in a muscular sac which is called scrotum. So they are placed outside the main body, and this is called scrotum. Inside these testes are inside the scrotum. The reason for this is that the sperms need to be little cooler than the rest of the body. So they need at least 3 degrees cooler than rest of the body. Otherwise the sperm production is reduced. Okay, so that is why inside the body we have 37 degrees as a normal body temperature. Outside the body the temperature in the scrotum is little less. So it is almost to about 34 degrees Celsius. And scrotum is which keeps the temperature cooler, and the testes are placed inside the scrotum, and male gamete is produced inside these testes along with the male hormone which is called the testosterone. Okay, over the testes is a layer of a coiled muscular tissue or coiled organ which stores the testes, which stores the sperms for some time. Okay, so sperms are constantly being produced in the testes, and one male adult male produces about 2 million sperms in one day. Okay, so they are, till the time they are thrown out, they are stored in this epididymis, which is on a coiled muscle kind of a structure which is present above the testes. Then we come to the duct which carry these sperms. So sperms are connected, the testes are connected to the urinary bladder through a tube, thin tubes which are called vas deferens or the sperm ducts. Okay, so they take the sperm from the testes to the urethra by their muscular action. They have muscles inside. Through this, the sperms are pulled up and they are thrown into this urinary bladder, from where they go to the urethra. Okay, now the sperms do not travel like the way I have shown you here. They travel in a liquid which is produced by the vas deferens, and this liquid is called the semen. Along with vas deferens, there are many other glands which are associated with the male reproductive system, and these glands, like the prostrate gland, they help in producing this thick fluid. Okay. The next one is urethra, which is the long tube which starts from the urinary bladder. It carries the urine as well as it carries the sperms in the semen, and it is thrown out through the genital pore. Okay, so they only have one opening through which the urine also comes out and through which the sperms also come out. Okay, which is the sperms travel out through this urethra. Next is penis, which is a long muscular organ present in males, and it is used for throwing out and inside the vagina of the female. Okay, so this is the organ of penetration through which the sperms are thrown out into the vagina of the females. So this is about the male reproductive system with its four major parts: the testes, the vas deferens, the urethra and the penis. Okay. Now we will be learning about the female reproductive system, or the organs of reproduction in females. So now we come to the reproductive system in female. It consists of a pair of ovaries, which means we have two ovaries. Then it contains oviducts, ducts by the name of that. You can understand these are tubular structures. Like you had the vas deferens or the sperm ducts in male, we have oviducts in the female. And uterus, which is also called the womb, and vagina, which is a tubular muscular opening. Okay, so we learn more about these. Now ovaries. Ovaries are oval shaped structure which are present inside the abdominal cavity. They are two in number, and they are the ones which are responsible for the formation of female gamete, that is ova, and they are also responsible for the formation of the female sex hormone, which is estrogen and progesterone. So in females you have two types of sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone, and these are found in the ovaries only. So ovaries at the age, when the female reaches the age of puberty, that is when her reproductive system starts functioning or has developed, it starts forming eggs. Okay, so ovas are formed not at all age but at a certain age, which we call it as the age of puberty. How do you know that the person has reached the age of puberty? It is at the age of puberty that the girls start menstruating. Okay, so ovaries release egg at the puberty at one at time, and one ovary produces one egg. Okay, so like sperms, it is also a single cell, but this cell is much larger as compared to the sperm, and it is only one single ova which matures, and when it matures it moves from the ovaries to the oviduct. Okay, so one single ova is formed which matures and moves to the oviduct or the fallopian tube. These are thin coiled tube which have a funnel kind of a opening and which are connected to the ovary, and these connect from ovary. They take the ova to the uterus, or what we call as the womb. Now apart from taking the matured egg to the uterus, it is only here the fertilization takes place. So that means if the egg, the matured egg is inside the fallopian tube, and at that time the sperm reaches here and the fertilization or fusion takes place, then only it will turn into a zygote. Otherwise it will take the egg and it will move it to the uterus. Okay, now uterus is also called the womb. So oviduct opens into the uterus, it takes the matured egg and it takes it into the uterus. In the uterus they embed themselves, and if there is no fertilization, if the fertilization has not happened, at the time of when the menstrual cycle completes, they will be passed out with the blood also. We learn more about this in the next chapter, but this is the function of uterus, and if the fertilization has happened, uterus is a muscular organ in which the growth and development of zygote takes place. Okay, and uterus opens to a muscular tubular structure which is also called vagina, and it is also called the birth canal. So when the zygote is completely developed, when the gestation period in which the zygote turns into an embryo and into a baby, into a fetus is complete, then through this vagina the baby comes out. Okay. Now it is in men you have only one opening through which the urine as well as the sperms are passed out. In females there is two openings. The vaginal opening is different from the urinary opening. So we have to there are two openings in the females. Okay, and the ovaries are also connected to the uterus by muscular ligaments which are called ovarian ligaments. So this is a generalized diagram of a female reproductive organ, and with this we finish what was there in today's video. In the next video we will be discussing about the development of embryo.